Hey there, welcome back to Stellar Horizons campaign game playthrough, episode 20. A couple of quick fixes or corrections. In the last video, the Russian CV4 that was at Ganymede mined for ore. It got 3, but I forgot, it did get flipped and reserved. I forgot to pull a biology marker. So let's take care of that. And that is a 2. So that fixes that. I don't think there were any other gameplay corrections. There was a suggestion somebody has posted, and I think it's a good idea. The Asians are trying to catch up in research, and so the idea was to build a research base for the Asians at Mars. So it has a default 5 plus 2 because of the presence of life. So there's 7 biology that would be available with a research station. We saw the Russians do that. They have one, and they used it a couple of decades ago, but they just used it the one time. But now that the logistics of bringing these supplies is getting a little tough, it may make sense to switch these bases back to research. And the Asians also have an advantage because they've got 10 settlements. We look on the 10, that's a plus 3 technology output, so they would get 10 biology for a small research station, and that just costs 1 ore, 1 supply. They could even upgrade it for 2 more ore and supply to plus 3, so that'd give them 13 technology points in biology, and that seems like a pretty good deal. Although they're doing pretty good. They've started off good so far, so that's something for them to consider. With that, let's get to the builds. We are in 2092. In reverse order, the Asians have actually built most of their robotic explorers. They still have a telescope and a flyby, but they've got a good flyby out here at the asteroid belt. They have their good orbiter at Neptune. Their rover is heading into Saturn. They're going to go ahead and buy an orbiter, though, for $2 billion. And they're actually going to send it to Mercury. Just picking a place. So that's their builds. The Russians building their good orbiter. I don't remember what happened to it. It may have been at Saturn and failed. They're also buying a launch vehicle 4. And they're going to spend $4 billion for fuel. Forgot to do this last turn. They actually want to send the fuel out to their base at the asteroid belt. With the 4 fuel, they'll be able to upgrade the small spaceport to a large one. So that's their builds. The Americans are doing something similar. They've got launch vehicles. They're going to spend $4 billion for these resources to send out to their asteroid base. They'll be able to upgrade the small spaceport. They've actually got enough resources here. They've also got 4 supplies here that they're about to bring back over to their main base, and they'll actually be able to afford to build a CV5, which is 11 plus 3, 14 resources, but they'll have enough to do that. So that's their builds, plus they're going to rebuy their flyby and probe and launch that again. So that's the builds. Let's get to the movements. So here we've got the Asian flyby. Somebody asked about the probes on the flybys. They only cost an extra $1, and I had the idea, well, they could use the probes right now and get a guaranteed exploration here at these. They could use probes. The other thing is they can, everybody's robotic malfunction rate has really improved. They can, make the path and try to just pick up along, hit a research at each place they go to. But Pluto now is the public mission. So if they make it out to Pluto, they could save the probe and guarantee themselves a really nice exploration. Something that would probably get them two chip pulls at Pluto and give them a chance to get that. So that's something for them to consider. Okay, anyway, we were doing flyby boxes. So these guys have arrived at Jupiter. This rover has arrived at Saturn. And these guys are moving down. And I think that is all that we've got for that movement. All right, additional movement. So starting with the Asians. They've got that flyby. We'll take care of that. So here, and I guess I needed, nope, we're good. I was checking, I often forget to ready these guys. This guy's actually going to stay reserved. He's just going to load up cargo and move it back. But he's going to have to wait another turn because they're going to buy the fuel. So the Asians here they're going to move this crewed vehicle with 6 supplies back to their base. So that's, 6 ore. So that's at their asteroid belt base. And that's going to give them enough ore to build their small spaceport. The other one is still sitting on so it's going to probably stay there and mine. What do they want to do with that CV3? Well, they could research, they could go mining. I think they're actually going to go, let's go for they're going to go out to Europa. And they do have active radiation shielding, so that's not a problem. They're going to go to Europa and do an exploration. Of course, now I'm just thinking, Europa's biology. If they build the base on biology, should they go somewhere else? Let's do something different. Let's go out. So from the flyby, they can follow this one, go out to the Trojan and Greek asteroids, and that'll get them more engineering. Let's go for that. This rover, what was the mission here? Yeah. I think they wanted, I don't remember if we were going to go to Titan or Mimas. Neither one of them are missions. There's no missions here. They were just looking for exploration. This rover does not have a spectrometer, so there's no bonuses. Why not go here? Sure. That orbiter stays. The only other movement, so sorry, it's been a couple of days since I've played, so I have to kind of get my head wrapped back around what we were doing. They've got that crewed vehicle, they've got that crewed vehicle. Do they only have the 2? No, and they have that one out there. Okay, I think that's all. So they're just going to launch the orbiter. They are overkilling it with a LV-4, but the engine check was good, the rocket was recovered, and the orbiter, they're sending it to Mercury. That's going to be even more engineering, so I guess that's where they're going. So it'll be at the 1. Maybe I should just let's think about this from the perspective of the Asians. They certainly want to get the engineering so they can get CV5s. They also want some physics so they can get CV range 3, and they want biology to catch up on. I mean, they want everything. Instead of going after engineering with their CV, they're going to go, this is physics, they're going to come here and go after physics at EO. These are all engineering or biology for the rover. So they'll stick with the engineering that they've got for Dione and at Mercury. Okay, that's it for their movement. Next up, the Russians. They've got a couple of launches. What else do they have? I think they've got a reserved CV-3, which needs to move back to the Russian base. We are sending fuel. They're going to be short. If they want to build the spaceport, we may actually decommission that CV-3. That may be a way. Right now, let's see here, their crewed vehicle limit is, their base is 2. They've got the policy that gives them +2, so they could have 4 crewed vehicles. They have 2 4s and a 3 right now, so they may decommission the 3 though and use it to help build the 5. So that is one. Let's see here. So that's a movement. This one with the fuel is reserved. It's going to go back to the flyby box from Jupiter and head back to the asteroid belt. And that's a 1-year trip, so it's in the 1 box. And this CV-4, so they're pretty good on ore, but they need supplies. They're sending this fuel, plus they just mined some fuel. If they want to go for supplies, they could go to Europa or they could explore. I think they're going to go for the Europa for remote mining. Okay, and again, none of these moves require an engine check roll. That looks like that's all of the Russians' movements, except for the launches. So they're launching an orbiter. Where are they launching that to? They're going to send it to Jupiter, launching it on an LV-2, 49. Rocket is recovered. Let's check their travel time. Jupiter's 5. It's a 3-year journey, and they get a 1-year bonus for their LV-2. So it's 2 years out for that orbiter. Next up, launching 4 fuel on an LV-4 to their asteroid belt base. 66. Rocket is recovered and the fuel arrives at the asteroid belt. Any other movements for the Russians? I don't think so. Americans. Okay, they've got a couple of Earth launches. What else are they doing? Well, we know that this crewed vehicle 3 is moving back here and bringing those 4 supplies to the asteroid belt. Let's see here, what is this? This looks like a reserved CV-4. It's got, so that's going to definitely move back here as well. And it's carrying some supplies and ore that I didn't take into account. That's 2 of the Americans' ships, and the last crewed vehicle is here at Mars. It needs to wait another turn though, because they're going to buy that fuel, load it on there, and bring it back up here. Okay, so that is their 3 crewed vehicles. I don't think they have any other crewed vehicles. Do they have any robotic explorers that need moving? And the answer is no. They've got an orbiter there, they've got a rover there, another orbiter out there at the heading into the scattered disk. So let's take care of their launches. First up, launching supplies to the asteroid belt, or resources, on an LV-4 98. So those also arrive. And the rocket's recovered. And then next is a flyby with a probe and they're going to send it to the asteroid belt. Or should they just go ahead and send it straight to Jupiter? Now, I don't know that it makes a whole lot of difference. it's 1 year out from the asteroid belt. This is on an LV2, so it would be 2 years out. It is a flyby though, so it can, yeah, I think they'll just skip they'll go for Jupiter. 35, the rocket is recovered, and they're just going to jump ahead. And that flyby and probe are going to be in the 2 box at Jupiter. And so they'll skip the asteroid belt. So let's go to explorations. So nothing here. No explorations. Well, we've got exploration, but for Americans. We're doing Americans first. So they could do their flyby. Let's see here. They would be a 3 plus 2 for their technology, but minus 2 because they're 2 years out. So 3 plus whatever target they want. And is there a flyby bonus anywhere? No. There's spectrometer bonuses, but they don't have a spectrometer on that flyby. They've got the rover there. They've got an orbiter. They're going to go for the Trojans and Greeks. Why not? Let's try that. So it's going to be 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 for the Trojans and Greeks. 95, no malfunction. 3 is a success. So that is an engineering marker. Which is a 2. Next up, they will do the orbiter. No, let's do the rover. Rover 4 plus 2 for tech is 6, plus 5 is 11, plus 2 for this rover bonus. What did we say? 11 plus 2, 13. Guaranteed a physics. And with a 2, they get another one, 28. No malfunction. So 2 physics markers. First is a 1. Second is a 2. Next up, their orbiter. I think they've been doing, what have they been? I think they've been targeting Europa. So 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 5, 9, 10, 11 for that bonus. And minus 1 for the distance. Back to 10, yeah. Automatic success, that's biology. And they're just rolling for malfunction. 62, they're good. And we said biology, which is a 2. So that is Jupiter for the Americans, and I don't think they have any other, just that orbiter. That'll be a while. Okay, next up, Russians. I think they're in the same situation here. The CVs are mostly transporting resources and mining for them. The Russians do have this flyby here at the main asteroid belt. So the question is, do they use the probe now, or do they hold on to it for Pluto? Their malfunction rate is 21. They're gonna target here. Gives a bonus for flyby. So 3 plus 1 for their technology is 4, 5, 6, 7. They're going to go for the 7 at Vesta and hold on to the probe. 83, no malfunction, and a 7. So that's a success. That's engineering. Which was a 1. And immediately make an engine check. 94, no problem. and they're going to go ahead and head out to Jupiter, and it'll be a 1-year trip. Other Russian exploration. Well, do they want to explore or mine? Let's go for an exploration. So that's a here. Crewed vehicle exploration bonus right now for the Russians is +2. So that's a 6 plus 5 is 11. Okay. 11. So that's an automatic success, and maybe one more. Nope, and they rolled the 16, so it's a recall. So they get a biology marker for exploration, which is a 2, no depletion, and the next one is also a 2. And this crewed vehicle flipped. Other Russian explorations? No. Next up, the Asians. Well, they have their flyby here. So they're going to, and they have a spectrometer, they're going to go for Hygeia Pallas. So 2 plus 1 for their technology. 3, 4, 5, 6. And they're going to hold on to the probe as well. That is not a successful exploration, but no malfunction. We roll the engine check. 86, no problem. And they're going to head to Jupiter as well. This guy's going to mine. This crewed vehicle is going to explore, so they are also with a +2 crewed vehicle exploration bonus. That's a 5 plus 5 is 10. So a guaranteed physics marker. You just need to roll. Recall 90, no recall. They get their physics marker. Just a 1. See here, any other explorations? I've got this rover here. The rover is a +1 because of tech, so it's a 10, 11. And this is engineering, so it's guaranteed engineering, and perhaps one more. No, and a 63, no malfunction, so engineering. They got the depletion. They get a 3. So that earns them a political marker. We are reducing, this is over here. That's 6. Oops, I'm going to have to take you with me to get the marker. 6 is reduced to a 5. There's no spectrometer, so they're only pulling 1 world card. And that world card, M-class asteroid. Well, minimal gravity, that's not going to work. So nothing there, but there is a life check, 5%. $77, no life. Next up, this orbiter is going to target Triton. They do have a mission still for Triton. 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 7 is 11, minus 1 for the distance, back to 10. Guaranteed physics. Checking for malfunction, 49, they're okay. Physics marker is a 5. So they have gotten a depletion, and they just did their mission. So that is 2 political markers. And let's see here. Triton is going down to a 6. The orbiter has a spectrometer, so we're going to pull 2 world cards. And actually, they got volatile atmosphere and volcanoes. Well, that requires severe atmosphere. And Triton doesn't have that, but volcanoes, Triton actually is an icy volcanic moon, so the volcanoes applies, and I think they'll go for that. And that makes that an interesting location, plus it'll give them a +2 exploration bonus in the future. Life check is a 7% chance. $75, no life. They have scored this 4-point Triton mission. That's their second mission of the decade. And so they need to pull a new mission. Not very many missions left. Their new one is Europa, which, where's that? Isn't that? Yeah. Out there. Well, they've got a crewed vehicle 3, so they can actually move the crewed vehicle 3 over their next turn and try to get that one. That brings them, I'm just looking at their limits, they've got 1, 2, so they have 3, 4, 5. What decade are we in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they could hold up to 7 mission chits, so it's worth doing Europa right now. Okay. Another good turn for them. Any other explorations? No. Remote mining, starting with the Americans. The answer is no. Russians. Well, they chose to explore, not remote mine, so they're done there. And the Asians, I guess, are the only ones who are doing that this turn. Here at Vesta, but they want more ore. Well, it's really, why not? They'll go for it. 7 is the target number to get to. So they got a 41, no recall, and a 7 means they get 2 ore. So now this thing has got 4 resources loaded up. Okay, that's it for that. Trade and base construction. Well, trade. Americans, here at their Mars base, it now has 5 settlements. So they are going to be able to get up to 6 resources. So they'll do that 3 times. So they'll spend $3 billion. And get 6 fuel. And I'm just going to load it onto the ship. The other one that they're going to do, they'll go ahead and do this one at the asteroid belt. It now has 3 settlements. And so they can do it twice. So they get 4 more ore. And that's just, they're just going to put that into the base. So I just keep on piling stuff over here. It's not very organized right now. I'll fix that up later. And they're about to spend some anyway. Let's see, that's all of the trade, right? Asians are not selling supplies there, and they're not selling ore there. Russians are not buying ore at Vostok. And nobody is doing those right now. So that's all the trade. Base construction. Well, the Americans at the asteroid belt are going to upgrade their small spaceport to a large spaceport, and that costs 4 ore and 4 supplies. So they're going the 4 fuel, and I'll take off 2 and a 2. So they can now build and service all ships in the asteroid belt. Now here's a question that came up. Somebody on the Board Game Geek asked a question in one of the threads. They just mentioned that they didn't quite get range. And I responded, but in responding, I realized, okay, they've got the large spaceport now, so they can build CV5s. And I had forgotten that they had range. Both the Americans and the Russians have range 3. So this is going to be a moot point for this. But at the time, I was thinking that they only had range 2. They build a CV5 here. And again, let's pretend it's range 2. They can definitely send the CV5 out to Jupiter, because that's within 2, and they can send it back to Mars. That's within 2. I don't believe that they can send it to Earth, because although Earth has a large spaceport, a CV5 requires, from Earth, you would need a space elevator. You need the space elevator tech to be able to normally service them. So I don't believe, without that space elevator tech, I think you treat this inherent spaceport as just being limited to supporting up to CV4s until they have the space elevator. So I believe that's the correct answer. At range 2, a large spaceport here would allow the construction and support of a CV5 or larger out between Mars and Jupiter. But now that they have the range 3, they could send the CV5 from here back to Earth, no problem. If somebody else has a different thought, let me know in the comments. So that's the Americans build. Oh, no. Okay, I was considering just shooting a single ore up to the Independence base, but they went with the flyby. They're going to do that soon so that they can repair, one ore will repair that damage. They're not doing anything here. The Russians, so they've got this stuff now. Now here's the question. Do they build their large spaceport right now? If they do, that'll use up all their fuel, which means that crude vehicle 3 can't be resupplied. Do they want to keep the crude vehicle 3? I think the answer is yes. And they'll just build a new CV5. So they're not going to build right now. And the Asians, they've got enough resources now. They need 3 and 3. So they're going to build the small spaceport. It's going to cost them 3 ore and 3 fuel. So let's get the change, and I just make a messy pile. Let's see here, that's 2 and 1. And so they've got their small spaceport now. And with 2 more fuel, they can build a large one. But they don't have CV5 tech, so that's not something that they need to worry about doing this decade. And here, yeah, got some time to think. If we send them some ore, they'll be able to, they can either build settlements or build a small and or large research. Not and or, just anyway, those research stations that we talked about momentarily ago. All right, with that, I'm going to pause and figure out the builds. That is 2092 on to 2093. Okay, for the builds, 2092, the Asians are expending a fuel and a supply from their asteroid belt base to ready that crewed vehicle. They're also buying 4 ore that they are going to send to Mars and launch it on their LV-4. The Russians, similarly, a fuel and a supply to ready that crewed vehicle 3. And they are buying on Earth these 3 resources, 2 ore and a fuel. They're going to launch it on their LV-4 up to their Mir base. And that will allow them to build a settlement there, which will put them up at the next threshold. That's their plan. They're running low on money, and they are figuring that they're going to need to supplement the asteroid belt with some more resources. The Americans going big here. Remember, we had a big giant pile of stuff here at the asteroid belt. Well, they're spending 6 ore, 5 supplies, and 3 fuel to build the Enterprise. They're also expending a fuel and a supply from the asteroid belt to ready this crewed vehicle 4. That crewed vehicle 5, getting quite the fleet. They're also going to spend $5 billion on a rover, which they're going to send out to the Jupiter system. They're spending $1 billion for they'll launch the rover on the LV-4, 1 supply on an LV-2, out to the Moon Independence Base to repair it. So those are the builds. Let's go through the transfer boxes. So Russian CV arrives back at the asteroid belt with a load of fuel. These guys all arrive here. Let's see here. It's a Russian and Asian flyby. That stuff moves down. And these guys slide over one, and that looks like all of the transfer box movement. So next up we'll do Asian movement. Okay, for the Asians movement, I think just looking at what their goals are, they're going to send some ore to Mars, to Mars base here. At the asteroid belt, they've got the infrastructure that they immediately need. They can now support CV-4s out at Jupiter with the small spaceport. They've got some resources here. They could build up, they might, I think, going for settlements, 3 settlements, and they've got enough almost to do that. So they just need a little more fuel. Of course, they're going to probably expend supplies and fuel to ready crewed vehicles. Anyway, I think they're going to send this crewed vehicle 4 out to Jupiter. So it's going to be in the 1 box. This crewed vehicle here is going to return and unload these materials at the asteroid belt. And the crewed vehicle 3, now that they have a mission for Europa, it's going to leave EO. It comes from there, just for people who are interested about movement, go to EO and then follow to the Europa, and then back over to the Europa disk. So they can try to get that exploration. So they've got those. I think that's all their crewed vehicles, and I don't think there's anything else for them to move other than launching that ore on an LV-4 out to Mars. 35, rocket is recovered. I don't know, I didn't need to roll the red dice. That was just, so that ore shows up at Mars. And now they have the option they can build the research stations or go for settlements. That looks like all the Asians movement. I forgot to drop that orbiter on the transfer boxes, so now that orbiter needs to move into Mercury orbit. So let's do that engine check. 78, no problem. So it's in orbit at Mercury. And that looks like all of the Asian movement. Got the flyby here. We'll take care of that momentarily. Yep, they're good. Next up, Russians. So let's see here. What are they doing with their CVs? Well, let's do the obvious ones first. This reserved one is done. It's going to return from Jupiter back to the asteroid belt, be in the 1 box. This one is going to go to the base and unload that fuel. Just double checking. Yeah, it's a CV4. So that fuel shows up here at their base, and we're going to launch that. So they had a CV3 here at their base. What are they doing with that? Well, they can send it out to Jupiter to explore and or mine. I decided to keep it around. If they're going to build a CV5, if this pirate at Earth is going to get neutralized, they'd like to take the CV3 back to Earth. Potentially they can do the buy action with this fuel and bring it back out. They can work to do some trading with the Japanese and the Chinese on the moon. But they're waiting on that CV5, and that's going to be a couple of turns. Of course, now they see that the Americans have built a CV5. So I don't think sending the CV3 out to Jupiter is what they want to do. They could just take a risk here and see if they can get an exploration. I think they'll do that. I'll just move over here. So that looks like the Russian movement, except for they are launching on an LV4. And they could support 4 resources, but they're trying to... So here, that 2 ore and a fuel. Oh yeah, that's going up, I'm sorry, that's going to the Mir base. So that rocket is recovered. And I said ore, it was actually supposed to be supplies. They already have ore at Mir. So these things, and that's going to allow them to build another settlement at the Mir base. So that is all of the Russians' movement. Just checking. Okay, Americans, what have they got going on? Well, they've got a stack of vehicles here. Crude Vehicle 5 is definitely heading back to Earth. Distance is 3, their speed is 2. So this Crude Vehicle 5 goes into the Earth 2 box. And when it arrives, it'll try to engage that pirate. CV4. And the CV3. Well, they've done a pretty good, of course, now they're depleted of a lot of resources. So either sending the CV4, I think, out to Jupiter to either mine resources or explore would be useful. So that's a 1-year trip. CV3, in the same way, they could also go to Earth, and I guess I'm just looking ahead. If they want to sell resources at the moon to this Chinese base, they need the supplies, and they've got 2 supplies at Mars, but it'd be good if they had some more, or they could just load up the supplies here, go to Mars, pick up the other 2 supplies, and then take that to the moon. And that'll get them 8 billion. I think maybe they'll do that. Let's do that. So they're going to load up. They're going to load up those supplies, and then I guess they're going to need to mine supplies and fuel. So that CV3 is going to head back to Mars. Again, this, I'm not sure if this play is the best tactics strategy. So Mars is a distance, yeah, it's just a 1 year trip. And so that is going to be the Americans, I think. Crewed vehicle 5, there's a 3. Oh, okay, this crewed vehicle with the fuel headed back to the asteroid belt. So that was their other. Of course, now there's no supplies at the asteroid belt to help resupply that crewed vehicle. They'll have fuel, but no supplies. Well, I'll probably just use an LV2. I'll leave the 2 supplies at this base for now, and I can use the LV2 next turn to send supplies to Mars if we want to get it done in any kind of time frame. Waiting for that crewed vehicle 4 to go out there and bring it all back, that's going to take a lot of turns, and maybe that's the way to go, but we'll go that direction. So I think that's all of their crewed vehicle movements. They have 4 of them, and we've moved them all. They've got the rover launching on an LV4. They're going to send that out to the Trojans and Greeks. A 10. Okay, so that's a successful launch, but they lose the launch vehicle. And I didn't need to roll the red die. This rover, that'll be on the 1 box. Out here, lots of stuff. Heading to Jupiter. And then they are launching 1 ore on an LV2 out to the moon, Independence Base. So 26, that's where they recover that rocket and that ore. It's moved up here, and they'll be able to make that repair this turn. I think that's all of our movement. So next up, explorations. Starting with the Americans, nothing here, nothing here. Jupiter. Let's just take a look at this stack and make sure. We've got a rover. We've got crewed vehicle. Here's okay, so there is an American flyby with a probe, and it can explore Jupiter from the flyby box. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's pick a spot. So it's a 3 plus 2 for technology is a 5, and then it'll be -1 because it's 1 year out. So it's 4 plus some other target. I think we'll go for the Trojans and Greeks. And that way, so it's a 9. 9 targeting the Trojans and Greeks. They rolled a 4%, so that is a failure of the flyby, and that'll earn them an engineering marker. They also get a 7, so they're getting 2 engineering markers. First one is a 2, so no depletion, and the second one is a 1. And again, the Americans are having a little bit of a problem, so that flyby and that probe are removed. Next up here, let's do this rover what did we say? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. On EO, 92, no malfunction. A 9, they just get the 1 physics marker, and they don't get a second one. But they did get a 3, so that's a depletion, which earns them a political marker. The 5 is going to get reduced down to a 4. It does have a spectrometer, so they get to pull 2 world cards. And their world cards are cratered surface, which is what's there now, and hematite. Well, that hematite certainly is nice for ore. It would also give, they would lose the bonus for the rover exploration. I think they're going to stick with the cratered surface for now. And the life check, 4%. $34 no life. Orbiter, if I'm remembering our numbers right, 4 plus 5 is 9, 10, 11 for the orbiter, minus 1 for the distance, 10. So an automatic biology. And they just roll for malfunction. They rolled a 9, so they did get a malfunction. So they're getting the biology marker, which is a 2, and an engineering marker for the orbiter's failure. Also a 2. And the Shoemaker orbiter comes off. Everybody had been a little bit above, I think, their robotic explorer support limits. And the reason why, I feel confident doing that early in the decade is because those things are going to fail. But the Americans still have an orbiter and a rover. But they went from 4 to 2 this turn. That, So we took care of their flyby, we took care of all of this stuff, and the only other thing they have is that orbiter, which has not arrived. Russians, explorations, let's see, that's Asian, Russian exploration. They're going to do crewed vehicle. I guess they could also mine, but I think they're going to go for the exploration. So they are a 4 plus 2 for crewed vehicles, and that's plus the 1, 7. They got a 10 and a 27. Well, I'm pretty sure 27, yeah. Their recall rate, actually their recall rate now is 25. So 27 is okay. No recall. The 10 is a failed exploration, so nothing happens there. So you're making sure that they don't have, these are just crewed vehicles, orbiters, rovers. Okay, so they've got the Russian flyby here at Jupiter. What do they want to pick? They don't have any physics right now. They could use their probe and take advantage of the bonus for probe there. That would be like an 18. No, it wouldn't. Yeah, it would. Or they can hold on to it for Jupiter. Oh, I mean for Pluto. they're just going to do Jupiter but not use the probe. So the flyby is 3 plus 1 for tech, 4, and Jupiter is a 4, 8. They rolled a 35, no malfunction, 7 is a success, so a physics marker for Jupiter. And they got a 3. So that is a political marker for the Russians. That is a depletion, so that 4 goes to 3. The Russian flyby does not have a spectrometer, so we're just pulling one world card. And it's helium-3, so it can apply. Helium-3 is better than hydrogen, so that makes that more interesting. I think they'll do the helium-3. And I'm sure life check is probably 1%. Yes. 1% life chance. 78. And the flyby needs to make an engine check. And it moves on, 68. That's good. So next destination, Saturn. They could also, I'm just looking, so your difference between Jupiter and the Kuiper belt, that's a distance of 7. With their speed tech, that would be 4 years away. I think they'll do go ahead and go to Saturn, because they're more, but they could start, maybe we'll look again next turn and see if they want to skip some of these intermediate planets and head straight out, because they can beat the Asians there probably if they do that, and they can get multiple attempts on Pluto. I don't see any other Russian exploration. So Asians, they've got an orbiter at Mercury. 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 5 is 7. No exploration, no malfunction. Next for the Asians. Okay. I feel like I'm just looking at that crewed vehicle 4 there at the Asians. Did I move that, or did it just arrive? They readied a crewed vehicle. And there is, the other Asian crewed vehicle 4 is at the Jupiter 1 box. Okay, that's the crewed vehicle that just brought resources back, but had not, from Vesta, but had not been recalled. So that's fine. Asian flyby. 2 plus 1 is 3. They would like some more biology tech. Of course, they're going to go for biology here. In fact, let's go ahead and just do Europa with this one. We'll do the flyby in a minute. So, because Europa is their mission. So, crewed vehicle 3 plus 2 for tech, 5 plus 5 is 10. So that's a success with biology. And rolling for recall. 76, no recall, their biology marker. Is a 2, so they did not accomplish the mission. So they'll go ahead and do it they'll target it with the flyby. So the flyby is 2 plus 1 is 3 plus Europa is 5. And no additional bonus. So an 8 with the flyby. They got a 7 and a 54, so that's a successful biology. Chit pull, no malfunction. And they hit it. They got a 5. So they've accomplished their Europa mission. It's another 2 political markers. They're doing much better this time. 3 missions so far. So here Europa got a 5. Flips down to a 4. The flyby does have a spectrometer. So they're going to pull 2 world cards. Do a world card shuffle. And they get C-class asteroid and impact basin. So let's see here. Well, C-class asteroid's not going to apply, but impact basin, it's an icy rocky moon, so they could do impact basin, but I think they like the water ice better. And so they're going to leave water ice there. And the flyby needs to, chance for life. Let's see here, 14 printed plus 4 modifier, 18. They got a 97. And they need to do an engine check with a flyby. A 7%. Well, that's still successful. And they're going to move it on to Saturn. So now it's in the 1 box. Other Asian, they've got a rover. So 5, 4, plus 1 for tech, 9, 10. So 10. Automatic engineering success. Building for malfunction, and 18. That is a malfunction. Their failure rate is 21 right now. So they're pulling an engineering marker and then another one for the rover failure. Well, first one's a 3, so they got another depletion. And the next one, wow, 5. They are just killing it. Okay, so they're getting lucky. Okay, so this rover is pulled off. 5 goes to a 4. Rover did not have a spectrometer, so there's just 1 world card, and that one is going to be escarpments, rocky or icy. Well, it's an icy rocky moon. I'll go ahead and put it there. The bonus, of course, is just for crude, so it's not going to help too much with the exploration, but makes it a little more interesting. Life check, 5%. $73, no life. They completed their Europa mission. So they get a new one. There's only 2 mission checks in the cup now, and they just pulled, wow, they got lucky again. Mercury. And they just happen to have an orbiter there. Okay, so we've done Saturn, so now we're back to the orbiter here at Neptune. Well, it's accomplished its missions, so now it's really just about targeting. They can get physics from Neptune, and these are both engineering. Nope, that's a misprint. So physics, engineering, and physics. So physics or engineering? Well, they're guaranteed physics if they target Neptune. So I think they'll go for the guarantee. just rolling malfunction. 87, no malfunction. Physics marker pull is a 2. That looks like all of the exploration. Next up would be remote mining, and I'm pretty certain that we don't have any. There's nothing going on here or there. There's nobody remote mining out here, so that's all done. Trade and base construction. Let's see here. Trade, we've got those trade markers at Mars. Nobody's doing anything with those. Same thing, there's one there. Nobody's doing any trade. Base construction. Americans not doing anything. The Russians, they are going to do their Mir base and turn that to settlements into 3. Oh, well, the Americans are going to expend the 1 ore here at Independence Base and get rid of that damage marker. Russians here. They now have enough. So 4 supplies and 4 fuel. And they can turn this small spaceport into a large one. And so now they can consider building their CV5. Of course, our little CV5 for them, it's going to cost 5 ore. They've only got 4. 5 supplies, they've got 1, 3 fuel, and they've got 2. And they don't, well, I was going to say they don't have anybody coming in, but that's not, I don't think that's, no, that's an American bringing supplies. So the Russians don't have any resources on the way. But now I guess it does make a little more sense for that crewed vehicle to consider doing an ore mining. Okay, any other, they're not doing anything here. Vostok base is at Mars. We'll probably want to send, be good to send 2 fuel there and let them build more settlements. Asians, okay, they've got a collection of stuff here. They don't have any resources on the way right now. Mars base, considering settlement or research station, we still have plenty of time in the decade, so we'll just defer that decision. So I think we're done with the build phase and the turn. We are at 1 hour and 8 minutes, so I think we will call this video good, and when we come back it will be the year 2094. So thanks for watching.